Welcome to Modern Dev, and today I will show you the specification pattern and why you should use it. So the specification pattern is not in the book Design Patterns, so it's not a pattern from the Gang of Four, but it comes, or it is mentioned in the domain-driven design book, which was written by Eric Evans in, I think, 2003 is the first version. And so the major idea of the specification pattern is that usually, especially in bigger projects, you will recognize that you have a lot of little business logic sprinkled around your project in various places, and the specification pattern helps you to extract these notions of your business logic and kind of like centralize it in one spot, so you can reuse the business logic. And also, like, it helps a lot for the reader to understand or to see better that, there's some business logic involved here. It enhances testing of your code. So let's have a look. I prepared an example. So let's consider we are writing some software that handles products. And so we can have different products. So I created an enum called product category, which can be like book, movie, or podcast. So we're doing some digital stuff. And I defined a record called product. And so a typical simple product would have a name, a category, and a price, like very simple. And because one of our products can be books, so there is a book service. And because of simplicity, there's no database. I mocked or I faked a little database with just an internal in-memory list. So we get 3 products here. And now basically our task is we want to write a method or like a functionality that gives us from all available products, gives us low budget books. So one way how to do that is we would query our database, which is this fake call here, which returns our in-memory list. And then we just use the stream API, which I explained in another video. So we filter our products and we say, okay, we are interested in products where the category is book and where the price is, let's say, less or equal 2.0 whatever, euros, dollars, whatever you like. And we have a test. Because I like testing, we have a test. Here's the test. So we query it and we expect the Lord of the Rings book with a price of $1.99. So that is returned here. So if I run the test, we get a green test. Therefore, you should never trust a test that you haven't seen red. So let's change the result, and now we get a failing test because we say expected Lord of the Rings volume 2, but we get back volume 1. So the test definitely works. So, but back to the problem and to the specification pattern. So in our query method here, and this can be arbitrarily complex. So we have business logic here. That's basically the problem. And I know if you haven't seen projects, it's maybe a bit difficult to understand. If you haven't worked in bigger projects, you might think, why is that a problem? I mean, it's kind of like we have encapsulated this in this method. No, it's not a problem. That's true, but like in bigger projects, you will have these information sprinkled around. For example, like you have a magic number here. You do you do business logic here, but it's not really so clear what's going on here. Also, there's not a name for it besides like, okay, you have a good method name, get low budget books. But the problem is, like, if this gets bigger, you will have more of these places that contains this logic, and also is like this method is more difficult to test than if you would be able to delegate this logic into another class, because that means if you test this code, you could like mock the delegate, which makes the testing of this method more simple, because then you can just focus off what you want to get back, but you don't have to test all the filtering, because you have various combinations here that you would have to check in your tests, so your tests can get very complicated. And so that's basically separation of concerns, and keep it simple, and single responsibility also like plays into this thing. So instead of doing this, we now can use the specification pattern. And the specification pattern in its simplest form is you define an interface, and that's always the same. You define an interface that has exactly one method called isSatisfiedBy. This method returns true or false, and then depending on where you want to use it, you define as a parameter your entity, so to speak, or your value object that you want to test. So because we are working with products here, the whole thing is called product specification, and the parameter is a product. So we will focus here on the most simplest usage of the specification pattern. You can do a lot with it. We are really like scratching the surface here, but that already helps you a lot to get your code much more clean and structured. So that's basically the starting point. You need that interface, and now you can make different implementations of it. And because we want to extract this code, we could just write a low budget book specification, which I think is also a very nice name that already gives the reader a good understanding of what might be going on here. And so basically we have the thing that we implemented inline in the book service is here. So we say, okay, isSatisfiedBy gets a product. We check, is the category a book, and is the price less than. So I created a static variable, a constant here, which I call low budget threshold. It's private. And so that's very nice and clean. And so now we can use this in our book service. So we can say private final product specification. So now we can use IntelliJ to create our constructor. So now we have the specification. So we inject the specification in our constructor. So that's basically also like what you always would like to do. You inject the specification, and this is now enables you in tests to mock the whole thing. Or you could also like call through, which we will do now. So let's replace this code here with our specification. So we say product specification is satisfied by product. And you see this gets more readable, and I think like this reads very well, like almost like an English sentence, like filter products that are satisfied by the specification. And then you get back what your filter gives you back. So now we have to adjust the test because we changed our constructor. So let's inject the real specification, and that's also like something, I mean, you that's up to you what you want to do here. So you can inject the real specification or you can mock it. Sometimes I have to say I really like to use the original one. Depends on your setup. And so let's start the test. And test is green. Let's do the same thing. Let it fail to verify what's going on. Failing test because expected Lord of the Rings Volume 2, but we get Lord of the Rings Volume 1. So our test, so the functionality is the same thing, but we simplified our book service, and now we have a low budget specification which you can use on other places in your code. You can unit test the specification on its own, which I think is also very critical. You can unit test this specification, which is super simple. And then you could, instead of use the original specification here, you could just add a mock specification to mock what you want to get back. Yeah, that's it for today. I hope that this gives you an idea of what you can do with the specification pattern, and yeah, I will provide you some links, and if you like this video, leave me a like and subscribe to the channel, and see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.